Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm thrilled to have two special guests on. So we have Jennifer Arthur, who is the CEO, and Shannon McGough, who is a board member of a wonderful organization called the Children's Cancer Fund. And they have their upcoming 35th annual gala. And it's one of the very, very best run, most fun, most impactful, impacts a lot of people, and does a lot of good for the people of Dallas, North Texas, and beyond. So I'm really excited to talk with them about this event. And, with that, Jennifer, Shannon, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on 35 years. That is a great feat for any organization to do for an event.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's an honor. We appreciate you inviting us, and we can't wait to share more about Children's Cancer Fund.
Well, I'm excited to have you both. So, Jennifer, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what the mission of the Children's Cancer Fund is.
Of course, Children's Cancer Fund really champions kids in their fight against cancer through strategic investments. That's research right here in North Texas, and then compassionate care. And that compassionate care piece is really where the rubber meets the road. It's art therapy, it's music therapy, it's pet therapy, mental health, bereavement, the areas that patients need such a strong level of care. So essentially, we provide a full continuum of care from diagnosis to treatment.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you brought up the different levels of care because I think sometimes when people think, oh, I have cancer, it's all about the physical. But I love that you also incorporate things that allow people, a child in particular, in this case, to really have some additional outlets for, whatever their body is going through at the time. And I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, you're so right, Rob, because, when a child is going through cancer, someone walks through the door and they're expecting someone to come in with a poke or a prod or a scan. But for a child life specialist to walk through that door, there's such a sigh of relief. They know that that person is there to care for them in a completely different way. It's to care for them socially, emotionally, and it's a big piece of their care. I say it all often. I say that it may not be a part of their medical piece, right? But it's a huge component of their overall care.
Absolutely. And when you have mindset's incredibly important when you're going through anything challenging, and giving people, a complete set of, as children especially, a complete and full set of tools really can kind of, allow children to heal perhaps maybe a little bit quicker than they might otherwise, especially if it's a curable form of cancer. And with that, I want to kind of segue. I'm always fascinated how people get involved with an organization. And Shannon, I want to start with you. I know that you have, some very compelling reasons as to, why this organization is so important to you. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you got involved with the Children's Cancer Fund.
It's always been important to me to have an organization. Raising my own kids, if ever there's a day that you think you have it bad, I'm going to tell you there's someone else that has a harder shake, and what can we learn for it, and what can we do about it? And at the end of 2022, my son was diagnosed. Those things that you think will just not ever happen to you. And what got us involved with CCF was a girlfriend of mine reaching out saying, "Hey, I know Cannon is in the middle of treatment, but you need to register him. He needs to be a model." He goes, people know about your family and know about him, and we want to support you. And I know about this great organization. And with that one conversation has just started the last year and a half of the most wonderful relationship with the most wonderful organization. So yes, my interest level at this point, and for my whole family, was based on the fact that my son Cannon at 8 was a model in the gala. So we absolutely got to see and feel firsthand just how special this group is, how special this cause is, and how far and wide it reaches, not just in the Texas area.
Wow, I'm glad you brought that up, and I do want to dive a little bit deeper into that because your son got diagnosed approximately a year and a half ago, and you're already on the board. So what about this organization in particular? Because you and your family are going through you're going through a challenging, time-consuming time in that regard. What made you say, what, I'm going to invest some additional time with this because this organization is special to me, for what reasons?
Um, it takes me a minute on this one because it's so many reasons. They were a soft landing for our family. We talk about caring for the child, right? We talk about child life, caring for the child, and these doctors caring for the child. And when you're dealing with a child who's young, like Cannon, he gets all of his emotional cues and responses from dad and I, from his sisters, from his siblings, from our extended family. And to me, one of my favorite things about CCF is it's not just about the kid. They embrace the whole family, the whole group. My daughters are on the teen board. My husband and I go to every event that we are able to go to. And it's just this loving feeling that extends past the child and into the family. So now it's this feeling that the whole family has. We're able to jump in and lift Cannon's spirits. And it's really a team effort. And now that we are done with treatment and we're on the other side of it, I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's a little bit of exposure therapy for me. The more that I stay invested and involved and learn, and I will tell you, Jennifer Arthur is a wonderful example of someone to learn from. You seat yourself at a table with some of the most caring individuals. And I have the utmost respect for adults who champion this cause without having had it touch them personally. But I am so blown away by where their hearts are that I want to be a part of it. I want to set that example. I want to show other people. And I do want to show people there is life on the other side of this treatment and this diagnosis. We had it rough. We could have had it rougher. And every single day, someone else is given the news that we are given. So how can I not sit here and smile and tell you all that it's going to be okay? You may not always get the news you want. You may not always get the outcome, but there is a tomorrow. There's life on the other side of the news. And the gala is a great example, but there's event after event after event each year that this organization champions that just blows the lid off of the awareness factor. And there's just such a basic human need to care for these kids and care for these families that it's really hard. It's hard to say no to. And it's just fun to be a part of.
That was a really, really heartwarming answer. And what I really, appreciate about it is that, some people would they would get the services and they would move on. And what I really appreciate about that answer is you really do, you can tell in just the way you speak, you have a really strong desire to pay it forward for
Oh, yeah.
other families that experienced what you had to, what you've all had to experience over the last 18 months. And I just think that's really inspiring.
It's teaching moments, and even as adults, we're never too old for those teaching moments. I brought my friends in, I brought colleagues in, my business partner and I have gotten involved in this now, and it's just extended beyond my own family all throughout my circle. And I'm excited to keep that going.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Jennifer, I want to hear, running an organization like this, I'd love to hear your path as to how you got to the Children's Cancer Fund and what made you choose, this organization to lead.
Like many people, once you attend our event, you see the power of the impact. And so I have attended countless events across the country. But when I was invited to the Children's Cancer Fund Gala and I watched bird's eye view, I was stunned. I was stunned at the ability to focus in on a cause, bring the people who you're going to be serving to an event. They're there. The patients are there. So everyone in the audience is cheering them on. They're in their corner. They're learning about them. They're supporting them. And that connection is so special. In many events, you don't have that opportunity to say, that's who I'm supporting. That little 8-year-old boy who's walking down the runway with Troy Aikman, I'm cheering for him and I'm a part of that. I'm a part of his success story. And so fortunately, the Children's Cancer Fund leadership came to me with an opportunity, and that was 10 years ago. And we have worked tirelessly to move the mission forward. And every year we make this gala bigger and better.
That's amazing. And what I love is that, one of your first introductions to the organization was through the event itself. And I think, what I like about that is a lot of times when I have this conversation on this program, it's usually the donor. So I love that we've got an organizational leader who got their first experience through the gala and, found it so impactful that they wound up joining the organization and that you've been there for 10 years. So it's clearly an organization you love being a part of. You love the mission because no one is leading a nonprofit for 10 years unless they truly, truly love it.
You're right. And 10 years ago, when I sat down with the board and they were sharing with me the two pillars. We fund research and we fund child life. And I said, okay, talk to me about child life. What is that? Because I didn't know. Are we talking about a child's life? I mean, people in the general public don't understand that that's a department within the hospital. And I didn't know what that was because when my brother went through cancer, I was the sibling waiting in the waiting room, scribbling on old magazines. I didn't know what child life was. Well, now I know how powerful child life is because it's a service that's being provided to the patient families. So for the little girls who are sitting in that waiting room, scribbling on an old, newspaper back in the old days, now there's a team of people that come around those siblings, moms, dads, to say, how can we help you? How can we support you? You are just as important throughout this process as the child who's going through treatment. They're getting the medicine, but what kind of medicine can we give you? So for me, that was such an eye-opening opportunity for me to say, wow, look how far we've come and how can I help? How can I help grow an organization, bring in new donors, continue to tell the stories of patients and patient families in a way that resonates with them. So when I walk into a hospital room and see a family circled around after receiving some of the worst news that they may ever receive in their entire life, I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to hear that. It's scary, it's unknown. And what I hope and our team hopes is that Children's Cancer Fund can bring that hope and that education and that knowledge to give them confidence that they're going to get through this.
What a beautiful answer. And one, it shows that everyone at some point in their life is going to be touched by cancer, whether they're at a child age or not. And when it's a sibling, your brain probably goes back to when you spent the most time with them, which was when you are a child. So, it just goes to show that, it really is an illness and a disease that touches everybody. And you had mentioned in your response, you had talked about, kind of the two pillars, which is child life and then medical research. And to that end, CCF partners with two of the very best medical organizations, I would say, in the country, and the Children's Medical Center and UT Southwestern's Medical Center. So, one thing that, a lot of nonprofits can get stuck in is that I've got to do everything alone. And, one of our very first guests on this program was Lisa Cooley, who made the point of saying it takes a village. So, what advice would you give to an organization looking to partner with other organizations to advance their mission, Jennifer?
Well, first, let me say Lisa Cooley's always right. Lisa Cooley chaired the Children's Cancer Fund Gala the first year I came to see the event. And it was the year we went from a luncheon to a dinner. And boy, was she right. So we attribute a lot of our success to Lisa Cooley that year because what we'll talk about a little bit later is how we've evolved. And that was a big piece of our evolution. But from an organizational standpoint, I would just recommend an organization find their partner that their mission aligns and then look for the gap, look for the need, right? So, for example, we've been talking a lot about child life, and children's health provides that child life service to the patient families. Now, child life is a non-revenue generating position, meaning they cannot charge insurance. So insurance doesn't pay for that position. So what we do at Children's Cancer Fund, we pay the salaries of the child life specialists. So those positions are always fully funded. They will not go away. And to go a step further, we invested $1 million to create an endowment for child life. So the money that is generated off that endowment over the years will ensure those positions that never go away. So they're there for in perpetuity. So for that organization that is looking for a partner, make sure that it aligns with the mission and then look for a gap or a need and go fill it.
Absolutely. And that's really good sage advice because I know, a lot of times when people start a nonprofit, they're extremely idealistic and they say we cover everything. And the fact is that as much as we want to give and as much passion as people have, there's always going to be certain things that you can trust others to do better. And that's what I really love about, about that answer. And, we talked about the gala, we talked about how Lisa Cooley's always right. And, and this is actually the perfect segue, talk about the way the gala has evolved over the last 35 years.
Yeah, the Children's Cancer Fund Fashion Show and Gala started out as a small event. It was really a group of parents whose kids were at Children's being treated, and they wanted to, move forward from the lemonade stands and the bake sales, and they wanted to put on something where the kids were the focus, where their kids could celebrate themselves, could have some fun. Because keep in mind, they've missed their birthday parties, they've missed Halloween, they've missed all the fun things. They're not in school, there's no field trips. And so those parents were trying to fill a gap. They were trying to give their kids something special. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And we really attribute a huge part of that success to one of our advisory board members, Fred Shapiro, and his wife at the time. And they really brought the over the rainbow theme in place, and they got Roger Staubach involved. And Roger has been involved since inception. And Roger attended and said, "This is one of the best events that I've ever been to, and I want to support it in any way that I can." So he brought in the Cowboys, he brought in Troy Aikman, and that began the the trajectory from a small little event, and it grew and it grew into a bigger luncheon and a bigger luncheon, and then ultimately into the dinner and gala that it is now.
That's amazing. And what I love about that is it didn't start, because I think a lot of organizations that they put on an event, at least now, they think they've got to it's got to be over the moon and it's got to be this earth-shattering thing that's a lightning in a bottle moment initially. And the thing is, the very best events I found consistently started smaller, almost like, a seed or a sapling or a plant, and it just grew into this big, wonderful, beautiful oak tree. Let's just use it as an example. And it takes time. But if it takes time and word eventually gets out, more people are going to find out about it. And that's where you can get a community leader like Roger Staubach to get involved. And it evolves like literally generationally. And we'll talk about that in a little bit with the quarterbacks that have been involved with your organization over the years. And Shannon, I'd love to hear, talk a little bit about what it's like to attend the CCF for the first time, like what you felt the first time you walked in.
I'll start by saying, we call this an organization. And the one thing I will say that they do so beautifully is it is so organized. You talk about starting from a seed to a sapling to growing into this beautiful thing. And that really is the process of being involved in the gala. It starts months before. So yes, for these kids who've missed Halloween and birthdays and Christmas and all these fun things, the lead up for this event for them, start small, a little party, a little introduction. Oh, I got to meet Troy at this announcement party. And then, oh gosh, oh man, I'm getting fitted for a suit and I get new, Nike Dunks for this. And it adds to the excitement for the kids as well as the family and all of that. There's big announcements, which we got to take part in this year, which was so beautiful when these kids learn that they get chosen to be models. So, you make it all the way to the event and you can just feel it the minute you walk in the front door. You walk in and the lobby is set up so beautifully. The auction is there, life-size pictures and posters of all of the kids. On occasion, you'll see one running around. You can kind of tell who the families are. If you're in the system, we saw several of our doctors there. You'll see people that you've met in the hallways of the hospital. So you're immediately kind of met with this family kind of environment. The event itself is very well organized. When you get in there, you start with these pictures of the kids and posters. It's paired with music and videos and personal anecdotes and the beautiful Meredith Land, who's in our home every night at 5 p.m. delivering the news, talking about these precious kids and the ones that came before them and the ones that are returning this year to walk again as survivors. It's just all very compelling, and it really puts it into perspective, the amount of thoughtfulness that goes into this event for each one of these kids and everyone that is involved. I mean, it's every local celebrity that you can think of down to every regular family like ours and our friends and our parents. It's just such a fun, beautiful way for everyone to come together. I don't think it's lost on anyone. You can just feel the buzz the minute you walk in the room.
That's amazing. And what I really appreciate about that answer, when we're talking about the cardboard cutouts of the kids who were who utilize CCF services, the thing that people really want to see, especially in the post-COVID era, is they want to be able to see what the end result is.
Yeah.
And the fact that the children are there and you can connect, or that child's there, you're seeing the end result that these kids are, in many cases thriving post-diagnosis, and they're getting to see how how what CCF does positively impacts them in a really organic way. Because if they're just running around the lobby being a kid, it's like, okay, that's really, really cool
Your
running
child.
around during cocktail hour. Just don't hit a cocktail table and knock over all
Right.
the cocktails. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's really cool to kind of see how you would describe that just so perfectly. The visual is just really easy to see.
And it was just so it's casual and comfortable at the same time. Cannon walked off the stage at the end with Troy. Troy picked him up, gave him a hug, said hello to the family. Cannon was released to come sit with us. I mean, these kids feel every bit of a celebrity themselves. And I can tell you firsthand, they've worked for it. They've earned it, some of which are still in the midst of earning it and maybe don't feel 100%. I thought Cannon felt 100% that night. He's 150% now, but all of those little milestones help get them there. I mean, it's just such a wonderful boost of confidence for the kids and the families.
That is,
And you see it on the celebrities that participate too. And I know you'll get to this point, but like
yeah.
you see some of these people and they are 100% in to the cancer fund on every night that is not the gala as well, which is one of my favorite parts.
That's an absolutely important point that they're there. And I've been to events where there's celebrity headliners, and if they're not
Mhm.
tied to the cause, the entire room senses it.
They're totally tied to the cause. It's amazing.
And it's awesome to see that. And that's actually a perfect segue into the next question. So Jennifer, I'd love for you to field this one. So, we talked about kind of the lineage, let's just say, of the Dallas Cowboy quarterbacks being involved. So this year, Troy Aikman and Dak Prescott are the honorary gala chairs. So what advice would you give to a person or an organization looking to engage a high profile person for their gala to get them to say yes?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I think right now celebrities and actors, actresses, people who are really focused in on work have their pillars, just like a nonprofit has their pillars. High net worth donors and celebrities have their pillars. And so do your homework, do your research. I wouldn't go ask, Shannon to support, kidney research when you know that her and her husband support heart research. You have to do your homework. You have to understand where people stand with their own personal and professional pillars. And once you do, I think you're going to have a lot more success. With Roger, he's been involved since inception and he brought Troy along. And Troy was just so moved by the event. He said, I will keep coming back every time you ask me. And he's stayed true and honest to that. And when Roger retired, it was Troy's role to you know, fill those shoes. And he decided to call Dak, and Dak didn't blink an eye. Dak had that connection to cancer with his mom passing away. He had been to the event several times and walked patients and saw the power of our purpose. And so I think it's a combination of doing your research and aligning the mission and causes with the people you're making the asks for, just like donors.
That's absolutely true. And, there could be some people listening now that are like, well, how do I know what a celebrity is supporting? And that's where social media is a really powerful tool, because a lot of high profile individuals, they will go and they will, post on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever it is, the particular cause that they're supporting or the things that are important to them. So it's actually, it can be easier. I'm not saying that's the only research to do, but getting the sea legs for the research is, it's not as overwhelming as it may appear, because people hear that word research and they're like, oh gosh, it's, kind of like what you all fund for, like one of your pillars of, finding a way to cure cancer. I mean, that's, that can kind of feel overwhelming, and that's, a way to kind of bring that back in. And, I know we've kind of been talking about the event, and I want to talk a little bit about, because this event in particular has multiple program elements going on. So Jennifer, I'd love for you to talk about, because you've been with the organization for a decade now. How does the organization blend these various program elements into the gala so that donors are engaged the whole evening?
That is a great question because that's our job. Our job is to invite people to attend this spectacular event and bring them the best content, quality, creative content that keeps their attention. And so Shannon was referencing from the moment that guests walk through the door, we have creative content that we present to them. So from the moment that they may be walking, and every year we have a different theme. And so I'll give you a little sneak peek into what we're going to do this year. This year is our 35th anniversary. And so when our guests arrive, they're going to see a walk of stars. They're going to be walking through the foyer of the Anatole, and they'll see all the people who have supported our event over the years, including this year. So immediately they're connecting with, wow, that's so and so, that's so and so. I love that they are supporting this cause. And then when they check in, they receive everything that is highly branded Children's Cancer Fund, from the program to the bid paddle to the VIP reception. Some people are escorted to the VIP sponsorship reception, where they have an opportunity to mingle with the celebrities and the sponsors and gala chairs. And then some of our guests are escorted to the pre-function space, where this is another opportunity where we weave in our stories. The patients who are walking the runway that night, their headshots are a focal point. We also have their artwork that donors and guests can bid on. So Shannon was speaking to some of the events throughout the year that we have with patients. We're bringing in the artwork from when they painted at North Park, and those are up for auction. There's photos of them, stories of them. Again, weaving in, this is why you're here. This is who you're supporting. And then as the grand doors of the Chantilly Ballroom open, I think one of the magical things that we do each year, thanks to Grow Design, is it's all what you see and what you hear and what you touch. And it's spectacular. This year, we're going to have nods to the Cowboys because, again, we want to recognize them for our 35-year success. And then we're going to also have nods to the future of what's to come at Children's Cancer Fund and what's to come with the quality of care in North Texas. So again, all those elements are weaved in. We have a great team that really does a lot of our technology. So we invest in those IT areas. We invest in our production team, because if you can't hear what's going on stage well, guess what? You're going to pour another glass of wine and start chatting with your friend. So understanding these large events is also a big piece of making sure that your vendors understand, your partners understand how important it is to bring the house lights down during a video. We're going to show a video that showcases the clinical research that we're investing in each year. And that 2.5 minute, 3 minute video, we need everyone's attention. We need house lights down, everything quiet. Again, let's listen to why we're here and where your dollars are going. And if we can captivate that audience in a way that they feel connected to the cause, they're going to be more apt to donate. And our secret sauce is the patients when they walk down the runway, and whether it's Troy Aikman, Dak Prescott, Nikki Hilton, Jennifer Gardner, it doesn't matter who it is, all eyes are on those kids. The spotlight is on them, and the joy is literally from ear to ear. And there's just an energy in that room that is so electric. And I will share, it's not always a high. There's really a crescendo effect at our event. We have to say goodbye to those of whom we've lost. We've had to say goodbye to patients who have passed away. And we have to cheer for the kids who are having huge successes and have completed treatment and rang a bell. And maybe somewhere in between, there may be a little girl who's on the runway and she thought she was going to be able to walk that night, but she has to be pushed in a wheelchair. And that may be a disappointment for a moment, but when she hits the runway and sees 1,200 people cheering for her, all of a sudden it's not about the wheelchair anymore. It's about, wow, all these people are here for me and they're in my corner. So, that is from the moment that they walk in to the end of the night when the confetti cannons, dump tons of confetti on them to say, this was a celebration. This is why we're here. This is what we're doing. Thank you for joining us. I feel like those people can't wait to come back the next year.
Gosh, I mean, what a wonderful answer. And what I want to focus on something because we don't talk about it enough, the importance of production values to creating a great experience for your guests. And I'm really glad you brought up the technical aspect because in order to make money, you do have to spend a little bit of money. And it's okay to do that because if you're going to get a return, you're then going to be able to help more, more children and create a bigger impact. So it is okay to spend where it makes sense if you know you're going to get the dollar amount, dollar amounts in return. So thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that piece up. And Shannon, you lit up the second Jennifer mentioned, the fashion show. So I want you to share a little bit because I can tell it is so important to you. Talk a little bit about the fashion show in particular and how it really just is such a moving moment that allows donors and any guest who's there, quite frankly, to emotionally connect with what CCF is all about.
I mean, it is every bit of what Jennifer said. It is just electric. I mean, and I guess for my first gala last year, being on the mom side of things, you can quickly look around the room and the first crying faces you see are the moms when their kids hit the runway. Cannon was certainly nervous. I can tell you that, on the behind the scenes side. But each of these people that sign up to walk with these kids for whatever the theme is, whatever it is, they go above and beyond to make them comfortable and excited and have a good time. And it is just this, I don't know how else to describe it other than it's just this magical moment where these kids are so very celebrated by everyone in the room. It is electrifying and on all counts. It is truly an extravaganza. And I want to make sure I answer your question. My mind is reeling of all the memories. And I think, I hope I didn't miss moments. And I'm excited to come back this year as a second year and really get to observe some of these things now that it's not my first year. And I can tell you, like, the web of these kids and their families and their friends, the lead up to it, everyone's talking about it. I can tell you the people that we invited to sit with us at this, they're coming back next year. They're telling their friends, how can I get a table to bring more people? So it's an electricity that's felt throughout every seat in the room.
Well, the electricity, it shines through your answer, Shannon. I mean, it really, really does. And you can just see why it's such a wonderfully attended event with a devoted following because you all really do think about everything from start to finish. And I know we're coming up on time, so we'll start with Jennifer and then we'll end with Shannon with this. But that is, what is one thing all successful fundraising events have in common? And Jennifer, we'll start with you.
One thing. One. So hard. One. I think insanely organized team. You have to have a passionate, insanely well-organized team, or it just doesn't come together.
Wonderful answer. And the importance of the only things that ever go wrong during production are the things that go wrong during pre-production. And that's where an organized team comes into play. That was an amazing answer. And Shannon, what about you? What do you think is the one thing all successful fundraising events have in common?
For years of not having run one and having attended many, I will say an undeniable human need. And especially when it relates to children, there's just flat no denying the need here. And there's no shortage of people who want to support it. So undeniable human need paired with a wonderful team to pull it off just makes it.
Wow. And that's, that is a mic drop moment if I've ever heard one. So, I'm really just so proud and grateful for your success after 35 years of this. And I know what you've got another 35 all within you. We may not be at all 35, but I know you guys will be a very prominent organization doing so much for so many years to come. So with that, Shannon, Jennifer, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And the 35th Annual Children's Cancer Fund Gala will be held on April 11th, 2025 at the Hilton Anatole in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit childrenscancerfund.com. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.